of decades, I would say that traditional membership in Rotary, especially in the US, has dropped. So Rotary has become very embracing of new concepts and new types of clubs. And I think an e-club is the perfect example of something that 20 or 30 years ago, well, wouldn't have been possible to begin with just because of no internet. But I think Rotary is more and more embracing the idea of e-clubs. I think there are, Chrisanne, do you remember? I think there was like 250 e-clubs worldwide when we chartered, and I'm sure there are many more today. So just a couple of club updates. Elke and I had a call just before the meeting today, and I'll be talking to Olga tomorrow about the pollinator service project. We actually have a plan. We'll be coming up with details, and then you'll hear more about it at the club planning meeting in a couple of weeks, if not before. And then just to keep the bylaw review group, Greg, I was thinking maybe you and I could just touch base on that at some point, not during this meeting.
Happy to.
Okay, great, wonderful. And if that includes dinner and a drink, that wouldn't be the most horrible thing either. Speaking of, and when you took a drink of water, to me, like it looked like the bottom of a vodka bottle. I'm like, oh boy, are the meetings that bad? Tipping up the bucket. Anyway, a little humor. Okay, so upcoming speakers, Henry, who was an exchange student to Zimbabwe. I'm really looking forward to his presentation next week. Please join if you can. Karen Jordan and McCarthy's sister, who will be talking about successful retirement. And many of us are of the age where that's either a part of our lives or starting to become, a thought. And for our younger members, some probably good things to get in place now. And then in 3 weeks, Olga, our president-elect, will be presenting on looking forward to our next Rotary year with the E-Club. So it'll be fun as well. And Alton, you're more than welcome to join us anytime you wish. If you have not done a Teach Me, or if you have another Teach Me idea that you would like to maybe tell the club about, please let Chrisanne know, or myself. And finally, welcome new members. Alton, we have members in, as you know, Colorado, and Elke's in Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And we love new members. So if you kind of like the vibe in the meeting today, please consider joining us. Our dues are rock bottom low from a Rotary perspective. There are clubs where dues are, thousands of dollars a year. More traditional meetings tend to have a large bill related to lunch or dinner or breakfast, but our bill is all virtual, or our club is all virtual. So the dues are nice and low, and would love to have you join us anytime. And finally, just the becoming a friend of the club, just a reminder to club members, if you know other Rotarians that might be interested in joining or helping us get off the ground a little bit, we are always accepting $100 friend of the club donations. And with that, I would like to turn it over to you, Alton, and hear about elections in Denver. I'm personally looking forward to hearing about you and your background and your involvement with elections and how things, I think just personally, you always think elections are elections and they run kind of similarly no matter where you are. And we're kind of I'm used to the process here in Minnesota. And it doesn't immediately occur to me that things are vastly different elsewhere. I mean, that's becoming more and more evident with some of the election laws that are being placed, around the country and all the rest. But I would say growing up, or up until a few years ago, I just personally assumed elections function the same way. So I'm really curious as to the differences in Denver and Colorado and any other observations that you might have. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to you.
All righty. Well, good to see everybody. I'm going to start out on camera, and then I do have a short presentation. I want to leave plenty of time for questions and answers. As Your Honor, Karen, have mentioned, that's a classic example of what you're talking about, John, because even using Colorado as an example, I'm not an attorney, but one of the things I bring is being able to bring these arcane legal concepts down in digestible English for the public. And so one key difference that I've already heard is here our judges run for retention as opposed to election. But if somebody mounts a campaign to get that judge unseated, then they are able to mount a campaign for retention. So we have a state judicial review board that actually puts recommendations in our state blue book that also covers issues around, issues that affect debtor taxes or any kind of state questions. And so that information is in the hands of the voter. Usually in Colorado, someone has to do something fairly egregious to get tossed off the bench. It's not just a matter of, I lost my case and I'm ticked off. It's usually something definitely more drastic than that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation here and try to do a screen share. This could be a bumpy ride, so please bear with me for just a second here. And bingo, let's see, double click. All right, you guys seeing my screen? A PowerPoint. All righty. Yes, I'm going to talk about the Denver election model. And yeah, we're very proud of our model here too, because of how voter-centric it is. Again, my name's Alton Dillard, full name Alton Peterson Dillard II. I'm the communications manager for the Denver County Clerk and Recorder and the Denver Elections Division. That is all one organization, but we're about a century behind other Colorado counties in that Clerk and Recorder has only been an elected office in Denver since 2007. And as I go through my presentation, I can get into a couple of the reasons that that is the case. So a little about me. I was raised in the newsroom at the Denver Post. My mom wrote for the Denver Post for 30 years, including everything from features to breaking news to her last decade as a theater critic. She had an interim period where she was the fashion editor. And so for, like a 22-year-old kid being able to get dragged along on fashion shoots, professional models, I managed. I was a schlep because I could carry 100 pounds of clothes at a time. So it worked out. Got a bachelor's in journalism, mass communication from the University of Northern Colorado. Go Bears. I'm a former United States Senate press secretary. And in that role, I was very interested in what you all have to say about cultural exchange, because I was able to visit 4 countries in Africa on Air Force 2 while I was employed by the US Senate. So I got the opportunity to go to South Africa, Kenya, Botswana, and Nigeria. And in Nigeria, of course, we had to travel under armed motorcade because Nigeria is Nigeria. But one of the things also that's so cool about my elections office is that we have people from all over the world, even places where democracy is still emerging, who come to Denver to see how we do what we do. So I've been in government communications for about 28 years, closing in on 30. I'm kind of a crisis communications specialist. And you'll notice I have in parens by circumstance for a couple of reasons. March 3rd, 1995, that US senator that I was working for switched parties halfway through his kick your ass, they show up. And that's how it was back then. And so that was one to navigate through a crisis. And then November 7th, 2006, we had a technical failure within Denver elections that resulted in 20,000 people getting turned away without voting. At the time, we were a 3-person commission of 1 appointed person and 2 electeds. The 2 electeds had, they were part-timers. One was an accountant and one was a realtor. No one was minding the store. No one spoke enough tech language to know what was going on. And we had that failure. So me, who at the time was a contractor, ended up being the public face of that fiasco. So now 15 years down the road, going on closer to 17, I guess if I have my math right here, we are now considered a global go-to. So that's one thing that's been professionally and personally gratifying, is to be there through that evolution. So next slide. Some of you might recognize that guy.
Could I just ask you one question about the previous slide?
You may.
If you can go back one, your crisis in, was it 1990?
Oh, I've got them both memorized. One was March of March 3rd, 1995, and the other one was in November of 2006.
That one, can you tell us who the senator was and which party?
Oh, certainly. It was United States also, Senator. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, and also you said they would come to get you, or there was some reference, there was no internet, so they'd come to get. What do you mean by that? I'm just.
Oh, I mean by that, the people were hacked off. And so literally, instead of threatening you online to come kick your ass, they would show up at your office knocking and kicking on the door. So it was United States Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell, who represented the 3rd Congressional District of Colorado prior to being elected. And then after he became a senator, the 3rd Congressional District is a rural district in Colorado. So even though he was a Democrat, he was a pro-Second Amendment, pro-rancher, pro-labor, pro-law enforcement kind of Democrat. And because he upset a 17th Street banker district, Brooks Brothers Democrat, in the primary and ended up getting elected, he never felt that he got the baseline level of respect that an elected should get. And then he was also a fiscal conservative. And so then right before the party switch, they were getting ready to pass a balanced budget amendment for the first time in years. And the White House called the Hill and twisted some arms, and it went down by a vote. And then he switched parties a couple of days later. Wow. But the issue was, we had in Colorado, we were trusted with the information, and the people in DC, because of our bifurcated management system, they decided to sit on the information. So if you ever Google that whole party switch and see something about the quote unquote staff learning about it from the media, that was not the Colorado staff, that was the Washington staff. Got it. So thanks. I had to navigate
more detail on that
office through that. So, yep. So yeah, and anytime anyone has any questions, I'll get on a roll here. Just go ahead and let me know, and I'll answer them while they're fresh. Okay. Cool. So again, coming up on 30 years in the business, as again, you'll recognize this guy. But we did not talk about baseball. We did not talk about the Hall of Fame. We did not talk about statistics with Dave Winfield. What we both talked about is how we both work to remain relevant as professional communicators at our respective ages. I'm getting ready to turn 59. Dave Winfield's about 70 now. And he actually does communications for the Major League Baseball Players Association and the alumni. Question?
Apologies, just saying hi to Steph, who just joined.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Hi, Steph. And so we had a real cool conversation about how just the business of communications has changed due to things like social media, the 24-hour news cycle, you know, Fox and CNN and MSNBC, and how that's gone from news coverage and that balance of punditry that we had. So I have Forrest Gumped my way into a lot of various situations, and I really enjoy getting the chance to have that conversation with Dave Winfield. All righty, so let's talk a little bit about the Colorado elections model. Colorado, of course, has been a state since 1876. Denver's been a city since about the turn of the 19th century there, and then we became totally incorporated as a city and county. So we do have sort of an odd governance structure. So again, I work for the Denver County Clerk and Recorder, who's an independently elected official. So even though we have a strong mayor form of government, it is in our charter that we are in charge of elections. And so one of the things I've had to do is train the media to call us and not his press person on matters that are within our jurisdiction. So some of the key components of the Colorado model are, and we use the term mail ballot delivery because if you just hear the term mail ballot elections, like are so popular in Washington State and Oregon and places like that, to some people that implies that mail's the only way to participate. And we understand they offer, other options, but we offer very robust options here. So one of the things we do is we mail ballots automatically to all active registered voters. Another thing that's changed, and this is all due to House Bill 1303, which passed back in 2013. We now have a 22-day Colorado residency deadline instead of 60 days in precinct. Because we all know what's the first thing you do when you move? You update your voter registration. You don't worry about those boxes or call your cable company or call the utilities. Now we understand human nature enough, and this change here has driven provisional ballot use down to less than 1%. Now, provisional ballots are a good thing. Remember, those came out of the Help America Vote Act after the contested election in 2000. So what a provisional ballot does is no voter is turned away, and the impetus is put on the elections office to do any additional research before either counting or disqualifying said ballot. But most of the provisionals we got were because people moved and didn't update their address, which should not disenfranchise anybody. The other key component of the Colorado model is proactive voter list maintenance. Now we don't have to necessarily just wait on the voter to do their own update, because we're able to actually use NCOA data, National Change of Address data, through the United States Postal Service to be able to keep our voter rolls clean. We also participate in the ERIC project, which is an interstate compact where if people move from state to state, we get flags, but we don't just, again, automatically throw folks off the rolls. If we hear they moved or whatever, we do have confirmation steps that are in place. So we've got a primary election coming up in June 28th of this year. Here in Denver, we now have we're closing in on 750,000 residents and 500,000 registered voters. I mentioned the two-card ballot because Denver is also under Section 203 of the United States Voting Rights Act. So all of our language, all of our information has to be presented in English and the language of the designated language minority, which in Colorado, which in Denver is Spanish. And so that's determined purely by census. If census determines you have a 5% monolingual population, you have to present your information bilingually. Now, we're also voter centric to the point that even before that mandate came down after the 2000 census, we had already been doing that just as good customer service. We also use 11 voter and service VSPC, so pardon all the governmental acronyms. That essentially is a vote center, but the statutory term is voter service and polling center. The sponsor of the bill wanted to make it clear that these places offered multiple services, and so they wrote that mouthful into law. And then we also have ballot return options, including 42 24-hour drop boxes located throughout the city and county. So John, you'd mentioned Texas. We had some fun on social media with Harris County, and we make it clear that we understand that the elections administrators are the victims in this. These are legislative actions. But in our city, we have 42 drop boxes. In Harris County, they have 1. And so we took a little shot at the concept on Twitter, and it went pretty viral. So I'm always pretty happy about that because, again, being a graybeard, trying to stay relevant in the communications stream. So here's some of our strategic focal points. One And one of the things we really like about our model is we consider it pandemic proof, because you don't have to come in person like the old days. And one thing that vote centers do, vote centers allow you to vote anywhere in the county. So we are able to see if you live in Southwest Denver, but you got hung up, or you work in Northeast Denver, you're still able to vote your home district ballot and vote on the races and questions that you're eligible to do that. We also offer same-day voter registration, as was mentioned towards the top of the call here. But one of the things we do, because Colorado is such a popular destination, we do a lot of education to new voters about this model. And Chris Ann, I think you can speak to that part about how your experience as a new Coloradan went. We always want to make sure that people know about the Colorado model and how easy it is. You want to take a minute to tell the crew about that?
Yeah. So I moved here in the middle of October of 2019. And was there election that November?
Yes.
Are you the one that put my address in, or did the system figure out I moved here? Because I got a mail-in ballot and I didn't recognize it. It was like, well, how did that happen?
Yep, and that's a combination, probably, if it wasn't Eric, but that's probably the use of the proactive use of the national change of address data.
It was so slick. And then there's a little drop box at a library about a mile away from me, and I dropped it off there. It was amazing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So the other things that we offer is we do offer an accessible voted home option. One of the things you'll notice in government is lots of leaning towards technology. And that's all great, but you don't want to create a digital divide. You don't want to kick out people who speak a second language. You don't want to kick out people experiencing disabilities. As was mentioned, you don't want to kick out people experiencing homelessness. Our libraries have essentially become de facto homeless shelters. Homelessness is exploding in Denver. And we recognize that you don't want to leave that population out. So we actually do training classes in the computer lab at the local main library to make sure that the demographic of people experiencing homelessness are able to participate. We're also starting to make some national buzz, because in Colorado, you don't lose your voting right by simply running afoul of the law. You have to be in active felon status. And so once you are off active felon status, you can have your voting right restored. If you're pre-trial, pre-adjudication, you're in the county jail or the city lockup for 2 days or something like that, you are still able to vote. And so we actually conduct a pop-up polling place in our city and county jail system. And so that's another thing that we do to make sure that we're not putting up barriers to the ballot box. Another thing we talk about is earlier ballot return. In the Colorado model, we send ballots to voters 22 days before the election. But you know that by nature, humans have a tendency to procrastinate. And so you kind of have to nudge them. Some of the slides I'll show you a little later show you how much handling goes into mail ballots. In the old days, when we voted on the big, Iron Maiden machines with the big lever, and even the ones that evolved after that had the actual ballot face, all we would do is people would vote, and at the end of the day, we pull out what, I hope everyone gets this reference, looked like an 8-track cartridge, and you'd plug it into a tabulator downtown, and that's where you get your real-time results. This model does not work that way, so we actually have to report our election results in 90-minute increments, because we have to stop the count in order to pull the results. So another thing we work on is minimizing wait times at our vote centers. And ordinarily, especially because of the pandemic, we've been able to drive in-person voting down to an average of less than 3%. So because we offer same-day voter registration Most of the people who show up at our polling places either are not registered yet, or they somehow spoiled their ballot, and they spoiled their ballot after the 8-day window in which we're able to legally mail you a replacement. If it wasn't for that, we'd probably hardly see anybody in person. We also have a wait time widget on our website. We offer during the pandemic, and this is a thing that was so popular, we're going to continue to offer it, curbside balloting. So it's just like how you go pull up to space number 3 at the local Lowe's or whatever to pick up your online order. You get your ballot the same way. And then we do use social media to kind of nudge our this is not a word, but ever youthening city along to try to get them to get their ballots back early. And then also the 18 to 24 demographic is still one of our lowest turnout demographics. We have partnerships in the high schools and the college campuses in order to try to rectify that. So some of the things that we do here in Colorado for nonpartisan office, ballot position is determined by lot draw. So we literally have the candidates come in and have the old school brass bingo ball turner that you see there. And that's how we do our lot draw for nonpartisan offices. We also offer drive-up ballot drop-off. That has been a true godsend. It's so easy to vote here, you don't even have to get out of your car. And so you'll see people driving up, you'll see the guys running the trash trucks coming up, firefighters, cops, people coming up on scooters, people coming up on bicycles, unicycles. I mean, I've seen it all in 15 years of doing this. And then we also offer the 24-hour ballot drop boxes I talked about. Right there is our guy, Captain America. He's totally nonpartisan, but he is a big rah-rah about people participating in democracy. So for larger elections, he will actually drive around town on his real cool motorcycle and just thank people for voting. And we always have to make sure that it's clear that he's not affiliated with any party or anything, but also we're big on see something, say something. So he usually gets flagged every election. Hey, you know, there's a guy in a Captain America suit. Yeah, we're like, yes, he's good. But part of see something, say something is we also have anti-electioneering laws here where you cannot wear campaign paraphernalia within 100 yards of a polling place. So a few years ago, one of our election judges flagged a voter because of a shirt that they had on. And it was when Mitt Romney was on the ballot, but actually it was a sweatshirt from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, just one T. But still, we flagged it for just a secondary look-see, and we're like, oh, okay, no, that voter's okay. That's an MIT sweatshirt. So when we start talking about the security and sanctity of the vote, just want to make sure that's another example of how seriously we take it. So speaking of that, as I talked about, we have the mechanisms in place to keep our voter rolls accurate. And I've got a barking dog, so I'm just going to slide a window. So I hope you're not getting a shot of my chin in the screen. There we go. And then also one of the things that really changed in 2020 and is going to be a part of the ongoing narrative is our need to have resilience to threats, whether it's foreign, cyber, or even public health, because we're still in the pandemic. And then also, I'm gonna just try to, I just accidentally zoomed the screen. Hold on a second here. Because of the screen setup. Oh, okay, yes, and our ballots are verified by bipartisan team. I'm sorry, I see our little film strip and it's appearing over the presentation. Sorry about that. All righty, so another thing that we do, because we understand that we are in 180 character society, that as far as the attention span, is we try to visually present information without being so governmental and wordy, sort of like I'm being now. So, you know, that's my default, sorry. But this is an example of how we illustrate how the life cycle of a ballot works. So we take everyone through how ballots get set up originally. how we send the files to a print vendor for production, and all the way through. So this is an example of how we present some of these things graphically. So in the interest of time, as we go along here, I'm going to not skip through, but I'll probably show you just one little quick video just to illustrate something. But the other thing that we do is we take down the curtain around this. And also, by the way, if the meeting can go a little past 4:30, I'm good on my end. We conduct testing before and after every single election, and those tests are bipartisan. So we have, before every election, what's called the logic and accuracy test. We have a bipartisan team, one Democrat, one Republican. They mark test ballots. Those ballots are run through the scanners, and those ballots then are also, those same votes are duplicated into our accessible ballot marking devices. Those things are accessible to the point you can toggle between English and Spanish. You can toggle between light print on a dark background or vice versa if someone's low vision. These things are accessible to voters who may be blind, because it's got a little keypad that they're able to use just by holding it in their hand, and it blacks the screen out so no one can look over their shoulder to see how they're voting. But these are accessible to the point that even a quadriplegic using a sip and puff would be able to use the voting technology. And we actually, instead of saying, we're from the government, we're here to help, we actually brought people in from the community of people experiencing disabilities to be part of this as we created the mechanical voting system that we currently have. Another part of the logic and accuracy test is the hand tally. And then if everything matches up, the clerk signs off, and then these get locked away as part of the official election record, and they get locked away under seal and put in our vault. And again, you can keep me posted on how the time things going. I am going to show you just like this video is only 2 minutes long, but it goes back to the whole gray beard thing, because we were starting to get so many questions about how do you guys do what you do? Why is the process secure? And so I shot a series of videos using an iPhone, and then had like my 30-year-old employee do some editing in an Adobe suite. So let me just pull up one of the videos here. Okay, you see it switching over to YouTube?
We can't see it. We still see your PowerPoint. I think you have to reshare. And then
Okay.
a little box on the bottom of the share that's share its sound or something like that to make sure we can also hear it.
See in video now?
Nope.
Oh, sorry, sheet. Okay, hold on.
That's right. Nope. Just unshare. If you hit the quit share or whatever the button is.
Okay.
On Zoom. Yep, there we go. And then reshare the video.
Okay, yep. Give me just a second because it pulled up in a different window. Here we go. This is our ballot receiving video.
Make sure you clip those two boxes at the bottom, optimize video and optimize sound, so we can
hear it.
Hear it. Yep.
It's not playing for you, is it?
Well, it's playing. Are you still not seeing it?
I don't do.
Nope. And we're not hearing it either.
Okay, give me just a second here. Where you say optimize? Give me a second here. Sorry. This is why I wanted to get on early and do a tech rehearsal.
Oh, all good.
That's okay. When you share, so you have to share your screen. You might want to just share YouTube rather than your whole desktop. And then right when you're about to share, there are two boxes, optimize video, and I think there's one about sound. There you go.
All righty, so let's do this. Again, this is just a quick 2 minutes, and then I will just verbally go through the other ones. This is our ballot receiving video.
Interesting.
So that's just one example. Let me go back to the presentation real quick. And again, thanks for your patience as I techno-klutz my way through this.
That was so cool.
Oops.
It
Okay,
was really cool.
sorry. Let me minimize for a second so I can. I got to turn off the Nutrisystem ad here. Oh my goodness. Sorry. All righty. So again, just got a couple more slides to get through here. So again, thanks for your patience here. Let's see where I'm lost. Okay, there we are. Okay, share screen, back to the PowerPoint. Share current slide. All right, so next up we have the signature verification process. In signature verification, we have automatic signature verification that happens through a scanner, but we also have bipartisan trained teams that are actually trained by a former FBI forensic handwriting analyst to be able to determine certain variations. So we have, in my 15 years, we did catch somebody who voted a deceased relative's ballot using this process, but we also caught some people forging petition signatures and we're able to get them prosecuted. So again, we do take this very seriously. And so after the signatures are verified, they go into ballot preparation, which essentially is getting them flattened to be able to go through the scanners. Because of the pandemic, one of the things that we did, because this is our most manual of processes, so we took this process that was just in a room and actually blew it out into our entire lobby to be able to have people work in 2-person teams at these tables instead of 4-person teams for the ability to have some physical distancing. All right. So once the ballots are prepared, they go into counting. And then that is where the counting takes place. By law, we're actually able to start counting 14 days before the election, but nobody has the football. It is still raw data, so no results are released or even in the system until 7 p.m. on election night. And again, because this is a much more extensive process than the old plug the 8 tracks in, again, you have to stop this process, pull the data, put it on a secure server, and then it sweeps it up both to our website and to the election night reporting system for the state. After the election, we have a risk limiting audit and a canvass. This gets a little weedy, so I'm just going to blow through it. Again, I want to leave some time for questions, but essentially a risk limiting audit is a mathematical statistical process of determining accuracy. So at the Secretary of State's office, they literally have people's names selected out of a hat. That person steps up, they roll a 10-sided die, and that 10-sided die gets rolled 20 times, which creates a numerical sequence. That numerical sequence is then placed into a randomizing software, and that's what creates the manifest that is mentioned in this slide here. And so using that slide, because the ballots in that prior process, the ballots in any identifying information are separated in the prep process. So it's just a unique digital fingerprint placed on the ballot, but placed on the ballot after the voter's identifying information, which is on the envelope, are removed. And that way we're able to go find ballot number 82 in box number 65. And so once we do that, we'll have a bipartisan team here. They will literally read the votes off the selected ballots, Smith, Jones, yes, no, and then they reverse the process and double check. The person working the computer will read back the votes just to confirm that they heard them correctly, and those are entered into the RLA tool. Once we determine there are no discrepancies, we sign off on the results in the election. That part is official, and then we also canvass after the election. So we always make sure the media, the candidates, and everyone knows that nothing's official until we canvass the election. Another thing we do here is we bring the vote to the people. We have the Holland Votes mobile voting unit. Sometimes the old guy here will do little play on words on social media of Holland Oates lyrics. And then my 30-year-old colleagues are like, what are you talking about? I don't get it. So I touch the social media less and more manage the team that does it more. And so we have that unit, which actually requires a 1-ton pickup to pull around. And so we also, using federal relief funds, picked up the voter coach here. It came plain white, and then we had it wrapped, and it made its debut at the Major League All-Star game, which of course got moved to Colorado because of the restrictive Georgia voting laws. So we were able to show people, because a lot of people go to all-star games from out of state, we were able to really showcase the things we do to bring the vote to the people. So both of these units serve all the same services as a brick and mortar voting location. And so especially the voter coach, because it does require a commercial driver's license, but it's a lot easier to move physically around. The one Holland Votes is a little more logistical. You have to get there way ahead of time to make sure you're able to get the thing backed in, et cetera, et cetera. So
hey, we're at 5:25, 4:25 your time. We have about 5 minutes for some.
Okay, perfect.
A couple of people need to hop off right at the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
Here, but is it okay if we take, I have a feeling that we have about a half hour of questions to cram into 5 minutes, but
yep. So let me bag out of the presentation here, because there was only like one more slide.
Oh, there we go.
Let me stop share, and then we'll take questions. And then
yeah, for sure. If you're willing to stick around for a little bit. Yeah, are you willing to stick around a little past?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Who would like to lead off? I feel like each one of us has kind of a different take on elections and your presentations, and probably has some pretty detailed messages. So just take yourself off of mute and go ahead. Karen, go ahead.
So what is your city doing and your state doing to anticipate cyber involvement in the election that's coming up this year in the 2022 election?
We do a couple of things. Two things. One, we've got a very good partnership with the city technology office. Literally, that see something, say something. Mm-hmm. I spotted some doohickey hanging on a pole outside by the Department of Homeland Security. So we work with people on the federal, state, and local levels to make sure the system is secure. Plus, the other thing is that vote counting system that I showed you in those accessible tablets, none of those are connected to any of the internet or any kind of external source. And so the counting system itself, if someone introduces a foreign flash drive or something, it will literally shut the machine down.
Thank you. Karen, follow-up questions or?
Well, I'll turn the floor over. I know others have questions.
And again, I can stick for a while. I'm good.
Sure.
Most people got it.
I mean, I had a question on the, you said that no tally is reached until election day at 7 p.m. At that point, what percent, do you have any, stats on what percent of the pre-election ballots have been tallied or counted or?
Yes, that's a great question, John. So in that first process, the one video that I did show you, when we do that scale calibration, that tells us what's in the door. So our best practice is we go into election morning zeroed. So the 7 p.m. report that comes out on election night is everything received up until election day. And then the 8:30, the 10 p.m. and the 11:30 reports or anything that comes in that day. Because the election's not official until Thanksgiving week, we got out of the practice of writing our election judges till 5, 6, 7 a.m. the next morning because nothing's official. So having people count through the night, and then you introduce an element of risk by doing that. And so that's how we're able to do that. And we actually post daily return stats, no results, but the return stats, we actually post those on our website. So the media and candidates and all that are able to figure out what the turnout is. And then also in Colorado, of course, like it is under the Constitution, who you voted for is private. That you voted is public information. So we put up a chase list that is behind a secure FTP that people can access so they can do ballot chase.
So if Chrisanne tells you that she's voted, you have a way of verifying that and getting on her if she didn't, right?
Exactly.
Okay, good.
And so do the parties and the campaigns. They will be.
Oh yeah, Con, go ahead.
Yeah, do you allow partisan observers?
Yes.
And I assume that they simply observe, that they're not allowed to participate whatsoever in the polling place, but they just sit.
It depends on what you mean by participate, because we have 2 levels of watcher here. If someone goes through the gold watcher status, they actually have the ability to stand over an election judge's shoulder and see PII. Personally identifying information. But yes, the other thing with the way our rooms are set up is they're set up for transparency. So even prior to the pandemic, we'd always have people from both parties, anyone who wanted to, but we really try to stress people, if you want to find out, become an election judge. But we do accommodate watchers. But because of the pandemic, we actually started doing a 24/7 video feed into all of our ballot processes that reside on the website.
Wow.
How I mean, you've done a marvel, and this presentation that you've done is just so marvelous, and really would inspire, I think, tremendous public trust and confidence in the integrity of your system. And of course, that is something that has been so under attack since the last election, and that there are still people in this country who are asserting massive voter fraud. How are you anticipating, how will your agency go forward to assure the public in advance of your primary, in advance of the general election, that the process has integrity?
Yeah, because we've been so transparent over the years, we rarely get called in, and this is not a partisan statement. Denver's a pretty blue county. We have like 50,000 Republicans, but we make sure that our outreach is equal. And so we are rarely accused of being the problem. And in my role as communications manager and public information officer, I actually put a Republican election judge on TV who was a skeptic until they came and worked within the process. Another thing that we do is just like through the use of the videos and stuff that we showed, anytime that narrative starts, we'll just send a link and say, no, this is how the process really works. But one jumping of the shark that's occurred since the 2020 elections narrative is we swing back now. You're an elected official, Mayor Kirk's an elected official, and there was a time where you just sit there and be the pincushion. But now, in defense of what everyone's worked so hard to preserve, we will call out the lies. So the split in our office is staff level gets to attack ideas, and our elected gets to go after your former presidents or your governors or whoever who are putting draconian anti-voting measures in place. But now, and there used to be a bright line between elections administration and politics that got erased in 2020, and it's probably never coming back.
And how about, are there any voter restriction measures that have been working their way through your legislature?
Yep.
Yes, a few get introduced and they never even get out of committee.
Oh, good.
There are some people who'd rather take us back to voting on tablets and chisels. And see, one of the things I always have to make sure to mention is those reforms I mentioned in House Bill 33, in House Bill, what was that House Bill? 1303, is that actually passed when we had a Democratic governor, a Democratic House, and a Republican Senate. So Colorado, yes, we do have the same schisms that you see nationally, but there are also some moderates within both parties. Because one of the things I talk about is you need to keep an eye on the right and the left. So with all the things that we just showed you, there's still people on the left who want Saturday voting. And I can show you the pictures of our election judges twiddling their thumbs for the first full week of the early voting period. Or they want polls to stay open until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And it's like, but you've had your ballot for 20 something days. There comes a point where, yes, we're always going to be voter centric and for the customers and voters, but we are Colorado. We're in the wild, wild west. So there is a tinge of personal responsibility that threads through both of our parties.
Other people with questions? Greg.
I have. Well,
Greg
sorry,
and then Eddie. Go ahead, Greg.
sorry about that. Kurt, I have about 3 comments or whatever. First of all, I am a chisel and tablet person. I feel such pride, such personal pride when I go down to my ballot precinct place and I cast my vote in person, with a machine, but in person. I want to be there. I that is as exciting to me as the Super Bowl is to somebody else. I just love going there and voting in person.
And that option is preserved in our model, and that's why we use the term mail ballot delivery instead of mail ballot election.
Sure.
Those voter service centers, you can go down there and either vote on one of those accessible tablets, or you can take a piece of paper and a pencil or a black pen and go into a booth.
But by voting on that day in the voting place, am I kind of gumming up the works? Because if I'd voted earlier, they would have been easier for the system or harder?
It's about 6 or 1/2 dozen of the other, because the only difference between your ballot and a mail ballot is the mail ballot's folded.
Okay.
It's still the same piece of paper. And so we have a process, because you yourself, the voter, would put your ballot into a sealed ballot box. So there's no way for your vote to be tampered with in any form or fashion.
Right.
But you, of course, triple confirm that you voted. And if you happen to make a mistake, you just go back over to our helpful election judge and they'll give you a replacement on the spot. You have
Which
a third part?
Which leads me into my next question. The Colorado system that you just showed us, or the Denver system that you just showed us, looks great. It's perfect. I mean, I can't find a single flaw with it. Why is not every single state who's having problems or being accused of having problems not sending a delegation to your city to have you show them how to do it?
We've had delegations. As a matter of fact, now Senator Alex Padilla, who was the former Secretary of State of the state of California, he visited probably 6 times and ran this same type of legislation through the California legislature. And we literally have had visits from a lot of people, but as was mentioned in John's intro, it is a 50-state patchwork. And so there's no real one size fits all once you get outside of the Help America Vote Act. And so we have been called to be expert witnesses in front of other legislatures. I'm gonna use Indiana as an example. We've been in contact with a group down there called Indiana Vote by Mail. Our former elections director, Amber McReynolds, actually heads up the National Vote at Home Institute. She is brilliant. She's actually a graduate of the London School of Economics. And so now that she's left government service, but still is considered like the big national advocate for mail balloting, we're always trying. One of the things that tripped up jurisdictions during this last cycle, we had a decade-long data-driven approach that showed more and more people were starting to prefer voting by mail. And so you did see some jurisdictions trying to stand up in a matter of months what we worked on for 10, 12 years. And trust me, you have to look at everything down to how much paper you order in order to pull off this type of election successfully.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Sorry, I went with Greg first because I heard him first. Didn't mean to bypass you. Go ahead.
First, I want to say thank you for talking to us today, because this was awesome. Being an election judge in Hennepin County, where Minneapolis is the biggest city, I'm pretty sure counties across the state don't use the same systems. I saw some similarities where we have, paper and then it goes through so there's just, if there's ever any issues, you've got to pay. Anyway, I'm just so impressed with everything you talked about. So how about Colorado? Is it the same throughout the state? That's my first question. And my second question is, what are the things that, it seems like there are people that don't want to make it easy for everyone to vote. So what are the complaints that you hear? Because the system seems to be very inclusive and very accessible. So I'm giving you a standing ovation from my car.
Oh, thank you for that. So to answer the first part of your question, that voting mechanical system that you saw, we actually helped develop and pilot. And Colorado has 64 counties and it's in use in about 59 of them. And it's scalable because there are some counties where you have a 3-person staff doing elections, marriage licensing, and motor vehicle. So of course, when some of the rurals first saw it, they were real nervous. It's like, no. You don't need 20 terminals. You can do this with 1 or 2. It's scalable. And so that really helps because as part of our contingency planning, if people working on a gas line, cut the gas line, we're able to pick up our election and go to a fellow county and continue our processes because most of us are on the same system. When I started, not only was there a 64 county patchwork of election systems, there was actually a statewide, there's a patchwork of voter registration systems. Now the state of Colorado is all on one system. The second part of your question, I'm going to answer this as nonpartisanly as I can. Some people, are not of the belief that it should be easy to vote. It's a duty because America. And so they're the ones who have a tendency to really get dug in on some of these improvements. Now, like for instance, you talked about the whole overall security thing. If people don't understand that in the mail ballot process that we separate your identity from your voted ballot, of course, they're going to sit there and think, oh, here's Chris Ann's ballot. Let's see how she went. But we actually, our system is another one of the videos. And again, I think this is being recorded, but I'll also make sure to share the presentation with you all. We have these ballot extraction desks where they operate at the speed of the operator. So all the operator is doing is plucking the folded ballot out and putting it in a stack. And then the outside envelope with the identifying information drops down into a separate bin, and they never meet again. So once we were able to assure the public that people weren't just sitting in a room and going over people's ballots to see how they voted, that calmed down 90% of the dissent.
It sounds like you have another piece though that's very important. That's the verification process before you separate them.
Yes, and no ballot, because see, that's a good point. So like if you use Greg's model, we confirm who he is when he's standing there in front of the election judge. But we verify every single signature on every single ballot. If we can't make it out, we notify the voter, and the voter has up until 8 days after the election to send us an affidavit with a cleaner signature. If the voter ignores our outreach on that, it is state law that is an automatic referral to the district attorney. If someone simply forgets to sign their ballot and say, oh, my guy won by 20,000 votes, don't worry about it, that's their right. But if we let them know that there's a discrepancy in their signature, we notify them. And so another thing, going back to the whole signature verification piece and how we use the FBI analysts to be able to check it out, 99% of those are what we call household swaps, where spouses, domestic partners, roommates will just simply sign the wrong envelope. We have a mechanism in place to be able to cure that without even having to send them a letter, because we can say John and Mary Smith both live at 123 Elm Street. This is obviously a household swap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you have, any thoughts about outsourcing your process to neighboring states? I know a lot of organizations, they have a really good deal going, and they'll start that model in a neighboring state. So, could you offer election services to Utah or Nebraska or Oklahoma or something like that?
Services, because of the differences in law, would be hard, but being able to walk neighboring jurisdictions through how we got here, or being able to vouch for the mechanics of the system, or be able to explain why it's so important to have your whatever number of counties you have using the same type of system in case of contingency. That's something that we could do.
I think it's a money-making idea for Colorado. Outsource.
You know what? I like where you're heading with that. And, again, with the 50 state patchwork. Yeah. And again, we've had visits from the clerks of various counties in Indiana, Illinois, California, Arizona. I mean, people do come here, to see what we do. And again, this is the Colorado model. It's all 64 counties. All counties use a small variable of this process that I just showed you.
They're seeing what you do, but I'm not exactly joking about the idea, but I'm whatever, I'm the state of Iowa and I want to put this in place. And here's what we do, but there's like the technical support, the technical expertise that you guys of saying, like, really walking states through, like, here are the machines we bought, and here's the van we bought, and here's just much more kind of hands-on.
Okay, now I get where you're going. Yes, that's something we actually have done on a smaller scale. Here in Denver, we created what's called e-sign, and that gives voters the ability to securely sign petitions on a tablet.
Okay.
And one of the things with that is, because petition circulators, God love them, but they're kind of itinerants. They're like carnies. And so sometimes you can't vouch for them all. And then your name, your address, and your identifying information's on a piece of paper in the back seat of someone's Corolla. Using e-sign, you're able to sign and the statewide voter registration system is already loaded into that tablet. And so the circulator is able to do an on-the-spot confirmation that you are who you say you are. Then as soon as that voter fills out that petition and hits save, the identifying information shoots up to the cloud and it's not on the tablet any longer. And we actually marketed that to the Washington, D.C. Board of Elections.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Other questions? Sorry, not meaning to monopolize. Karen.
What's your voter turnout?
Our turnout in the last election was 86%.
Wow.
And so we're looking for that other 14. We usually run kind of neck and neck with you all up in Minnesota when it comes to that. And we also do a lot of outreach. We actually created an engagement team. So yes, you've got my communications team. I'm the spokesperson. I manage the people who do our social media and website, but we also have a team that's dedicated to community engagement. And then the other thing that's a big deal for our clerk, who identifies as Chicano, is making sure that even if people can't legally vote, that they still participate in democracy. There's nothing saying you can't help out a campaign, you can't put on a bumper sticker, you can't wave a yard sign on a street corner. You don't have to be 18 years old or be a citizen to do that. Another thing, I mentioned the fact that we're under Section 203 in our bilingual English-Spanish requirement, because we want to make sure to get out in front of any future censuses, we also provide sample materials in English, Spanish, Amharic, Arabic, Somali, Vietnamese, and there's one and Mandarin, I believe.
Alton, one of the people who joined late is Olga, and she's our incoming president next Rotary term. But Olga, I'm was hoping you would make more of the presentation. Olga grew up in the Netherlands, and I'm just curious how elections and balloting and whatnot are handled. Maybe you could comment briefly just on your experience in both South Dakota and Minnesota and differences from the Netherlands, just out of curiosity.
Oh, yes. Well, and sorry for my very late joining. I
No problem.
had a very important meeting with my leadership, and I said, but no, I cannot. I can only be there until 4:30. But anyway, so and this topic is just, I'm very passionate about it. What happened in August 2006 is when I moved to a small community right by the Minnesota state line, but on the other side in South Dakota. And there was a referendum about a Minnesota school district, and they didn't have enough students basically in high school. So the parents needed some kind of solution. Do we merge, or do we send, or do we prefer to send our students to a neighboring community in Minnesota, or maybe in South Dakota? And that's what ultimately happened. So this referendum, and I was new in the community. I was one of the larger employers actually, and I was just like, oh, I'm all in. I'm going to participate in all of this because I'm new here, and I want to be part of this and be included. So I walked to, or there's not much walking in rural South Dakota. I walked from my car to the election site, and I got a registration form, and the very first question, I could not pass that one because it was, are you a US citizen? And obviously, no. I was just super happy that I got conditional permanent resident card, and I could not vote at all. And I thought, not even for this silly thing in our school, but no, you do not get to vote. So I was just so bummed. But then I found that there are many other ways to influence and actually even be part of that democratic process. And I had a little piece of land along the highway. So of course, all kinds of candidates wanted their yard sign right there. Like, well, sure, but you know what? Let's just have a conversation about what I think is important for you to know. And so there were interesting opportunities, even though I could not vote, but now I can. I could vote in the Netherlands too.
Can you still vote in the Netherlands?
Yes, I still can, because I am still a Dutch citizen as well. Not all types of elections are open for people who live abroad, of course. Nothing provincial or nothing at the county level, but anything at the national and European level you can vote for. It is a little more difficult to follow what's exactly happening, I think, even though there's internet and you can read it. And it is, we had to re-register. So first there was no registration. When I was 18, I did not have to register. I was in the system because every county knows its citizens. You're in the system already. And so there's no census and there's no voter registration for that reason. They know who's there typically, unless you're somehow illegal. There are, of course.
That's fascinating. We just now here in Colorado are moving to automatic voter registration, where if anyone has any contact with motor vehicles, social services, et cetera, eventually those systems are made to talk to one another. And then one thing that's sort of an inverse of what you just described is under our Uniformed and Overseas Military and Citizen Voter Act. I think that's sort of how that acronym goes. People, while they're are abroad, are able to even vote on pothole issues. So you can vote on the mayor, you can vote on city council and stuff, as long as your voter registration is still within the city and county. You can actually vote for those levels and local questions from the Netherlands.
Wow.
That is interesting. So yeah, anyway, one thing, so some of the, so now the Netherlands is trying to facilitate more online activity around voting, and but it's not at the level they want it to be. And I even attended some online sessions of how to vote and what technology and how it all worked. And they apologized a lot during that session even. And then I had to re-register basically, or register for the first time, honestly. And even the questions in that registration were just so surprising, because I've now been here for 15 years and I've been thoroughly Americanized, whatever that is. But so there are not like the typical questions you would have here on any forms, right? Is about your race and your background and ethnicity or so. There was not much about that, but there was a question about nobility. I had almost forgotten it. Oh yes, that is still a thing. I can't check any of those boxes, by the way. But oh yeah.
You're not secretly the Queen's sister?
Yeah. Well, aren't we all somehow related to someone in 5 or 6 steps or something? So I'm sure I meet that. So yeah. Netherlands is one of the most difficult countries when it comes to dual citizenship, for instance. And we're recorded or not, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, you make a couple of really good points there, because that's one of the things that's so key about our engagement efforts, is getting into essentially communities of concern.
Mhm.
Because one of the things, especially in democracies like we're used to, we have to remember there are just as many people from Burma and Myanmar and places like that, where if you don't vote a certain way, you may get, and it's just one of those sort of, unfortunate realities. And so our neighboring city, Aurora, which is actually in a different county, they have a large immigrant and refugee community. And one of the things, because we Americans like categories and boxes, sometimes we use those terms interchangeably, and they're not one and the same. And so back to that, point I was making about getting people to participate, we have had to have conversations with people, letting them know that they're able to vote once they get their citizenship, and we actually are physically present at the new citizen swearing in ceremonies to register people. As soon as they put up their hand and they're done with their ceremony, we'll register them to vote. But letting people from other parts of the world know that you can do this and you're not putting yourself or your family in danger.
That is great. And actually, I experienced that myself. A year and a half ago, I became a US citizen. It was in Minneapolis. And there were volunteers there helping to get all those. It was a massive group of us who went through the process and explaining about the right to vote to right. And it was funny. In a way, it's funny. So professionally, I'm very involved with all kinds of leadership too. And of course, these volunteers try to explain to me what this really was. Thank you. That was funny too. But I think they really did a nice job making it very accessible, so you don't have to worry about, because there are a whole lot of things that you suddenly have to do, right? Especially if you want to travel, and there are a lot of other steps. So yeah, thank you.
Hey guys, I'm going to put on the rotary four-way test, if we can all take ourselves off of mute. Alton, this is sort of the foundational principles of Rotary dating back over 100 years, kind of the rules that we all try to live by as being a Rotarian. So each Rotary meeting around the country, incorporates the four-way test in some way during their meeting. So if we can all say this together, the Rotary four-way test of the things that we think, say, and do. Is it the truth?
Truth.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
So I will stop sharing this. I'd like to, offer a round of applause for you. This is just a wonderful, wonderful presentation, and one of my favorites, I think, that we've had in 2.5 years. So appreciate you sticking around longer than the hour, and just really such an important topic. And so nice to get to know you. And
likewise, and thank you again for your patience with my fat fingers on the tech. And because we in Denver and in Colorado, we've got elections coming up in June and November of this year. And then we've got municipal elections in April and June if there's a runoff in 2023. So love to come back sometime.
Wonderful. Thank you. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you so much.
All right, really enjoyed it. And again, Chrisanne, thank you for the outreach and for putting this together, John. And I just really enjoyed the experience. And I will make sure if anyone has any other one-off questions or whatever, I'll make sure that Chrisanne has my contact information. And then I'll also share with her the PowerPoints. You can click on some of those other links without me messing it up.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great evening.